new episode.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the I Love Dentistry office hours with Gary Takas. Gary, how are you this evening?
Hey, I'm doing great, Aaron. We've got a good topic today for our I Love Dentistry members for sure.
Absolutely. This is a great topic. As I guess people wrap up their summers and get back into the groove of things. My daughter started school this week, so I bet it's happening all over the place. The topic today
Yeah,
is
we're winding down our summer schedule and heading full speed ahead into fall, aren't we?
absolutely. Um, the topic today, I think, is a timely one because it's key to every successful practice. And the topic is called Huddle or Muddle. Huddle or Muddle. And I know you have, helped hundreds of practices implement effective morning huddles, and you believe in this strongly. And so tell us why you believe in the morning huddle, Gary, and
Yeah.
let's start there.
Well, let me back up and actually explain the title of this ILD session, Huddle or Muddle. Many years ago, um, I was a regular columnist, a regular writer for Dental Economics Journal. This was back before there were podcasts, before there were YouTube channels, and medium that we now can use today to share information. The way we shared information was writing articles. And I was a regular columnist. I had a regular column in Dental Economics every month. But the editor at the time was Dr. Joe Blaze. Joe would often invite me to write feature articles, and I'd write 4 or 5 feature articles a year. And one of those articles I wrote about the power of a morning huddle, and I titled the article Huddle or Muddle. And the simple concept is you can huddle and make for a productive day, or you can muddle through it. So I shortened it to Huddle or Muddle. And about a year and a half after that article was published, I got a phone call from Dr. Joe Blaze. And he said, "Hey, Gary, it's Joe. I just wanted to tell you, remember that article, that feature article you wrote for us, Huddle or Muddle?" I said, "Yeah, that was a fun one." He said, "Well, I have some very good news for you. That has been the most frequently requested reprint article in our history. Of all the articles that have been published in Dental Economics, that one has been reprinted or requested for reprint, um, the highest number of reprints we've ever had." So I was just calling you to congratulate you on that. So I said, "Wow, that's great." Made me feel good that it was well received. But I truly do believe that we either huddle in the morning and plan our day, or we muddle through it. Now, Naren, let me share an observation. I've made it my life's work to study world-class dental practices, world-class dental practices. Um, and I have yet to meet a world-class practice that is not using a morning huddle. In other words, you have to use absolutes very carefully. Uh, when we say always or never, we really need to kind of filter that and make sure that that's the right way to describe it. Is it always? Is it never? But every single world-class practice I have ever studied, I've ever worked with, I've ever encountered, has been using a morning huddle. Now, Nara, let me be kind of playful with this. We just completed a couple of weeks ago the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Well, they
Yes,
call them the 2020 Olympic Games, but they're actually in 2021 because
right.
of COVID. Now, I'm going to make up something silly. I'm making this up. If every single gold medal winner in the Tokyo, in every event, chewed orange flavored gum before their event, what could we deduce from that? If every single one, with no exception, they popped a stick of orange flavored gum in their mouth before their event, what could we deduce from that if we were trying to study that? What could we assume?
Maybe there's a relationship between winning gold medals and
Couldn't
chewing.
we assume that if you want to win a gold medal, you should chew orange flavored gum? Right? I
Yes,
mean, I'm being silly about it, but
right.
right?
Yes.
Well, to bring it in line with our I Love Dentistry topic today, if every single world class practice is using a morning huddle, what could we discover from that?
Yeah, we would discover that there's a relationship between having this discipline to have a morning huddle every single day, uh, and their success on a daily, weekly, monthly, and annual basis.
Yeah, absolutely. They go hand in hand. And honest to gosh, I cannot think of an exception of a world class practice that I've encountered that is not doing a morning huddle.
Help me
So,
understand, Gary. Why do you think that's the case? Why do you think this is so critical in creating and maintaining a world class practice?
well, a lot of variables come up during the day. There's a lot of moving pieces in a day in the life of a dental practice, right?
Right.
A lot of, we have to think on our feet. We get thrown curveballs. There's a lot of things that we can't fully anticipate. The morning huddle allows you to look ahead and plan for the bottlenecks in your schedule, and make a plan that everybody is on board that, hey, if XYZ happens at 10, here's what we're going to do.
Yeah, it's kind of like walking into a meeting without an agenda and nobody has a plan, nobody has what, they're just going all over the place versus there is an agenda. We go through these 7 things.
Right. And the morning, let's talk about what the morning huddle is. And before I talk about what it is, let's talk about what it is not. It is not a team meeting. It's not the time to talk about the vacation schedule. It's not the time to talk about our supply inventory and that we need to order more adhesive material, or maybe on the practical side, we need to order more paper towels. It's not the place for that. Our regular team meetings are the place for those kind of discussions. The morning huddle is all about today. It's all about today. It's a 7-minute meeting. Naren, I didn't say 6, and I didn't say 8.
Right.
It's a 7-minute meeting. And if your morning huddle takes more than 7 minutes, you're not doing it right. So we start at Life Smiles. We see patients at 7 a.m. Our morning huddle starts at 6:45. At 6:45, and it's 7 minutes. So if you do the math, that takes us to 7:52. That gives us 8 minutes to do whatever prep we need to do to prepare for our 7 o'clock patient. And so the morning huddle is a very important part of laying the foundation for a successful day. It's more about the people you're seeing today than the process of what we're doing with those patients. There's a little bit of process. We need to know, what are we doing on the restorative patients? Do we need any unique materials, any different tray setups, any different call outs, that might be important. So there certainly is a process part of the morning huddle, but it should be more about the people that we're seeing today than the process. There's a little bit of process. So let me walk through it. So we start with a real quick summary of yesterday. Just very quickly, we go through a summary of yesterday. Then we move on to today, and we start to go through our columns. And we start with the restorative side. And if it's Dr. Paul or Dr. Tim, they'll typically have 2 columns that they're working out of in restorative. And we'll go through it patient by patient. And we're simply calling out anything that might be exceptional about that patient relative to materials or process. And we just go through them very quickly, go through those 2 columns. We then turn it over to our hygienists. Hygienists have to have done some homework before the morning huddle. And the homework that they have to do is they have to look at determine who needs x-rays today and what type, and determine if there's any unscheduled treatment in their treatment plan. So as they go through the schedule, it might be Naren's our 7 o'clock patient. We're going to take a set of bite wing x-rays for Naren today, and he does have some fillings on the upper left that remain to be completed. And that was it. That's you. And we go through just like that. And we might go through, in our case, we would have 2 or 3 hygienists depending on the day. And so we might go through, 2 columns, or might go through 3 columns of hygiene. Happens very quickly. The next thing I like to do is to identify any patients on our schedule where we want to take the 6 digital photos for patient education. Identify who on our schedule we're going to take the 6 digital photos for patient education. We also identify any bottlenecks in the schedule. where we can be proactive and plan for things ahead of time. Dr. Paul might say, hey guys, 10 o'clock looks like a real bottleneck. Let's make sure this happens before 10 so that we can relieve that bottleneck. And we'll talk about that. As we get towards the end of the morning huddle, Dr. Paul might say something like, hey, who can suggest the best time for an emergency patient in the morning? What's our best emergency time in the morning? And what's our best emergency time slot in the afternoon? So we're proactively planning for if we do get an emergency, where are we going to put them? And everybody contributes. So Dr. Paul might say, hey, 10:30 looks good. And then maybe an assistant will say, oh, take a close look, Dr. Paul. I don't think 10:30. I'm thinking 11 might be better. Oh, yeah, you're right. 11 will be better. So we identify a morning emergency time slot and an afternoon emergency time slot. For those offices that say, oh, we always do emergencies at this time, I would disagree with that, because every day is different based on the flow of the day. I think you should individually define the best emergency time every day. Does that make sense, Naren?
Absolutely, Gary. Yeah.
We also go through a process where I identify which patients we'd like to ask for Google reviews. So one of our, what I recommend is one of the team members shows up to the morning huddle with a list, an email list of all the patients on our schedule. And she's identified the ones that have a Gmail address, because in order to write a Google review, they have to have a Gmail address. We look at those patients and we determine which of those patients do we know would write a 5-star review. And there might be 5 patients on the schedule that have a Gmail address, and maybe 4 out of the 5 we know would write a 5-star review. When in doubt, don't ask.
Yes.
And then we go through one more step. We determine who's going to ask each patient. I don't want everybody asking. I think that would be harassment. But I also don't want everybody assuming that someone else is going to ask, because then nobody gets asked. We determine who's going to ask. That's part of our morning huddle. And then we finish the morning huddle with something very intentional. Let me talk about what we do before we finish it.
Gary, just one point before you talk about what you do to finish it. The way I kind of envision this is, if you're a great musician, or in your case, you're a great presenter, you don't just walk in, look at the slides for the very first time and start presenting it to a group of 300 people. You review it in advance. You think through what you're going to say, what you're going to highlight. Do I have the things timed properly? So in other words, it's almost like, of course, you don't take, if it's a 3-hour presentation, you don't take 3 hours to review it, but you would spend 5-10 minutes. Even though you may have spent a lot of time preparing for it, you still do that prep. So morning huddle to me is like that prep.
In the moment. That allows you to shift into the moment.
Right.
From whatever you were doing a minute ago, that goes in the rearview mirror, and now we have to get, we have to be present for the morning huddle.
Right.
I'm going to talk about what I'd like the doctor to do in just a minute, but a couple things as we lead up towards the end of the morning huddle. The second to last thing we do in the morning huddle is to identify any celebrations on the schedule today. And that has to do with either our team members or our patients. Any celebrations. Might be a birthday, it might be an anniversary, might be just something good that happened in their life. Hey guys, Linda, our hygiene patient at 10 o'clock, I read, I saw something this weekend that she won her age group in the Phoenix Marathon this weekend. Might be something like that. So that way we're all, going to congratulate Linda when we see her today. It might be it might be something that isn't necessarily positive. For example, it might be, hey guys, just a heads up, George, our 4 o'clock patient, recently lost his brother. His brother passed away. And so let's be extra compassionate to George today. So celebrations or challenges in the schedule today that have to do with either our team members or our patients. And then we finish up with everybody looking at the schedule. So I'd like the doctor to say, hey guys, take a look at the schedule, and I want your input on this. Whose life are we going to change today? Then stop and let them look. Whose life are we going to change today? And let team members, it might be obvious. It might be really obvious. Hey, Meredith, our hygiene patient at 10 o'clock, her and her husband just celebrated their 50th anniversary. Let's make a big deal about recognizing that 50th anniversary to Meredith today. Might be something clinically. Oh, hey, that patient that we have that we're doing those fillings on the upper left, when he completed those fillings, he was now ready to move forward with this treatment. So maybe that's the patient we're going to, celebrate. We're going to change their life today. So we identify whose life are we going to change today, and that allows us to kind of go into the workplace with intention. The reason why I think dentistry is so amazing is we have the ability to change people's lives every day. If we're not paying attention, it isn't going to happen. It's up to us. Does that make any sense, Naren?
Yes, absolutely, Gary.
Okay, here's the prep I'm going to ask the doctors today, and I'm afraid I am not going to. I'm not going to win any friends with this comment. Are you ready for this, Naren? Did I properly present that?
Yes.
I'm not going to be following Dale Carnegie's approach of how to win friends and influence people on that, but it needs to be said. And here's what I want our doctors to do. I think it's fair to say, Naren, anyone in our I Love Dentistry community is interested in developing a relationship-driven practice.
Absolutely.
I think that goes hand in hand with I Love Dentistry. They want a relationship-driven practice. Well,
right.
You know, a practice can get very large with a very large number of active patients, and it can be hard to remember everyone. Is that fair?
Yes, it's fair.
However, you don't have to remember everyone at every minute. We just have to remember those we're seeing today. So here's the homework I want the doctor to do. Again, I'm not winning any friends. Doc, sit down when I'm about to deliver this. I want you to show up 20 minutes before the morning huddle. If your morning huddle is at 6:45, you're showing up at 6:25. You are going to look at your schedule and you're going to pull the notes we have on every patient on your schedule today and simply review the notes. The notes are the not clinical notes, but the notes are the personal notes about the patient: spouses' names, kids' names, dog's name, hobbies, interests, where they went to college, details that patients have shared with us. We have that in a particular place in your computer, not in the clinical notes because it'll be lost there. And you simply do your homework on the patients you're seeing today. It may not be as necessary to do those on the restorative side because those patients you've likely seen recently, relative to the exams. However, in hygiene, think about it, Naren. You might not have seen that patient for 6 months. It could be longer. And now with last year so crazy with COVID, maybe you haven't seen that patient for a year and a half. And so do your homework, study, do your homework. And that way, when you walk into the room to see me, you're going to say, Gary, it's so good to see you. How's your wife, Therese? How's her yoga studio going? I know she started that yoga studio. How's your studio going? And how does that make the patient feel? Think about that, Naren. How does that make the patient feel?
It feels like, you are important to me. I remember the quote you shared with regards to Dr. Art Degoni, and you asked him, how come you remembered all this information about me? You have so many people in your life. And he says, you are important to me.
Gary, you're important to me. That's how I remember. And how do you feel like that?
You feel like $1 million bucks?
It could be as simple as the patient might have said in their last visit that, hey, they're really excited because in a couple of weeks they're going to Hawaii. And you could say to the patient, Maria, I know we talked about you going to Hawaii last time. How was your trip to Hawaii? And how's that patient going to feel? They're going to feel important. Right. They're going to feel recognized. They're going to feel valued. You don't have to remember everyone. You just need to remember the people you're seeing today. And we need a mechanism in the practice to do that. So doctors, I want you to show up, not only on time, that's another ILD for another day, but show up early. I want you there 20 minutes early and do your homework and study the patients that are on your schedule today and be prepared when you walk in and do those hygiene exams. And you will elevate the relationship-driven aspect of your practice to new levels. And it's part of what makes dentistry so cool. Naren, in our work with our clients, I want to help them develop a thriving practice. And what is a thriving practice? It's one that provides personal, professional, and financial satisfaction. Personal satisfaction is taking care of people that we genuinely know and we have a relationship with. And this is all about that personal satisfaction. Well, Naren, I hope this has been helpful. I encourage. Oh, we have a link that we can share in the comments. We did a podcast episode recently on the Less Insurance Dependence podcast about the morning huddle, and we titled that podcast episode the same title as our ILD office hours today, Huddle or Muddle. And it seems to me like that one's about 18 minutes long, and it's all about the details of the morning huddle. Naren, can we put that in the comments and share that with our I Love Dentistry community?
I already did, Gary. I figured you're going to ask me.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you on that one. Well, this was a fun one, and let's bring it back full circle. I've yet to meet a world-class dental practice that wasn't doing a morning huddle. So we can take something away from that. And that's if you want to have a world-class practice, start doing a morning huddle. That episode, that podcast episode goes through a lot more detail than we could do today. And you can start applying some of that in your information, start applying some of that information in your practice right now.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you everyone for listening, and see you next week.
Thank you, guys.
I Love Dentistry Office Hours with Gary.
Thank you, guys.